Alleged child murderer Moehydien Pangaker is continuing his testimony before the Western Cape High Court. He's admitted to violating his parole, but he has denied sexually and physically abusing any of his family members. Pangaker is on trial for the rape and murder of 8-year-old Tisney van Wyk in 2020. We've got Nobesuthu Hejana who's covering the story for us, and I'm sure you've had to listen to some gruesome details around the kind of crime that he's committed. What unfolded today, Nobesuthu?
Well, Mr. Moehydien Pangaker has, like you've correctly stated, denied all allegations leveled against him. In fact, this morning he admitted to the court that he did violate his parole conditions when he took a job offer to Johannesburg. At the time he was out on parole, he was meant to be regularly visited by some of the parole officers when he was still residing in Ladysmith. But when he took that job as a butchery bouncer, like he stated in court, he said he could not inform the parole officers in Johannesburg because where he was residing, it was too far from the police station, because he was working where he was earning about 50 rands or 100 rands a day. So at that time he forgot his manual and did not have the contact details of the parole officers who he would make contacts with so that they can monitor his movements. And also saying that some of the family members who are accusing him of sexual abuse and also physical abuse, they just want the same attention as the Tisney van Wyk case, because they had countless opportunities where they could have opened the charges against him, but they waited until he was arrested for this particular case. So he's denying all 27 charges, including the rape, murder and kidnapping of Tisney van Wyk. And he was just telling the court that he did not even know or have the cell phone numbers of his new boss who had offered him the job in Johannesburg. And when the state prosecutor asked him how was he planning to make contacts with him, and he did say that he has been to Johannesburg for some time, so he knew the area, but he was just hoping that he would bump into him in that side. But when he arrived there, he did not have any place to stay, so he took residency at a shelter in Johannesburg.
Nobesuthu, obviously the testimony will be continuing. When will it be continuing, and what are we expecting to see in those court proceedings when it does?
So the trial continues on Monday, where the state is still probing him of the allegations of sexual abuse and sexual assault in relation to the family members that have accused him of such cases. And he was also saying that at one stage, one of the family member or relative that is accusing him of sexual abuse, he was not able to fight them off when they aggressively put him on the ground, because at that stage or at that time he had a knee injury, so he could not defend himself, claiming that he was in fact raped by that family member. So on Monday we're expecting the state to continue with those cross-examinations regarding those allegations. At this stage we're not sure how far or how many more some of the cross-examinations will come from the state, as the Tisney part has not yet been touched so far.
And also, Nobesuthu, he's detailed the events in 2020 of what ultimately happened to little Tisney, and saying that he actually had found her body wrapped up with her head hanging out, and other details of what happened that day. Very briefly, if you could just summarize his version of events that day, because it is quite a bizarre story, isn't it?
Well, he told the court yesterday that the 4 passengers who had initially asked for directions to the Malawi camp when they were still in Ravenswood are the ones who are behind the murder of Tisney, saying that when they were showing them the directions to the Malawi camp, those people then proceeded to drive along the N1 passing Parole and drop them off at the garage along the N1. And when he asked them why were they driving them or dropping off them there, they did not respond, as they were speaking a foreign language that he couldn't understand. But when he was struggling to find a lift to drive back to Johannesburg, he miraculously saw the same people, but at this stage they were driving a bakkie, and at some point he was tied up and at the back of the bakkie, and they dropped him off in Laingsburg, where they took Tisney, and when they returned, Tisney was wrapped up in a plastic, like you've correctly stated, and when he tried to ask what was happening, no one responded to him, and they dropped him off along the side of the road, as there was a roadblock ahead of them. And he was also saying that that's when he last saw them and little Tisney, but he was afraid to tell anyone about that because he thought he would be responsible for such.